Go ahead. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. So where are we right now? We're hayat al-salah. All right. So what are hayat al-salah in the Shafi'iyya? It is what we understand to be the sunnah, meaning something that you should do, but if you don't do, there's nothing. There's no punishment for it, and you don't have to make up for it. Now the Shafi'iyya are different in that case, and I talked about that last time. I told you that the Shafi'iyya go rukn, sunnah, hay'ah. And what they mean by sunnah is what the Hanabila and the Hanafiya mean by wajib, and what they mean by rukn is what the Hanabila mean by wajib, and what the what the Hanabila mean by rukn, and what the Hanafiya sometimes call rukn or sometimes farida. And then what the Hanabila and the Hanafiya call sunnah, the Shafi'iyya call hay'ah. And I made a little table of that last time. All right, so you go back, if you didn't understand that, go back to the video, listen to it, and you'll understand, inshallah. So the idea is hayat are basically the sunan, the things that if you do, you get ajr for, and if you do not do, then there's no punishment, and you don't have to make up for it in any form. Like there's no sujood sahu, there's nothing. You just continue. So the hayat for the Shafi'iyya are 15 hayat. There's 15 hayat. Number one, رفع اليدين عند تكبيرة الإحرام. So it's raising the hands when we do takbirat al-ihram, and I will start to I'll start writing them down, inshallah, for the hayat. So hayat al-salah. Yeah. So the wajib, and the sunnah for the Shafi'iyya, if you leave on purpose, then you lose your salah for 99% of them, with a few exceptions. And if you forget, then you don't go back to it. You just do sujood sahwa at the end. You don't go back to it. Yeah. For the Shafi'iyya, you don't have to do sujood sahwa. It's sunnah. But for the Hanafi and Hanabila, you have to do sujood sahwa, and it's before taslim. And for the Maliki, it's after taslim. Right, so it's a bit complicated. I don't want to go into too much detail. Just learn what the Shafi'iyya have for now, and then inshallah when we do the next matn, we'll start with by the Hanbali probably next time. Then we'll learn that, and then we'll do Hanafi and Maliki, and that way you guys can have an understanding of how it works for everyone, inshallah. So what are the hayat of salah? Which is basically the sunan for everyone else. They call it hayat, everyone else calls it sunnah, and it's the recommended actions that if you do, you get ajr, and if you don't do, there's there's nothing, you don't have to make up for it in any way. Like there's no punishment, and it's totally fine. All right. So the first one is raising your hands during takbir. Which takbir? The first takbir, takbirat al-ihram. Yes. Doesn't work. All right. All right. Number one. For takbirat al-ihram, for the initiating takbir, right? وعند الركوع والرفع منه, and then the exact same thing, raising hands for the second takbir, meaning the takbir for ruku', right? And raising your hands for the third takbir. So the Shafi'iyya, for them the hay'ah, it's a sunnah for you to move your hands for takbirat al-ihram, and it's parallel to the shoulders for Shafi'iyya, right? And the palm of your hands are towards the qibla, right? And then when you do ruku', also Allahu Akbar. When you come up, you don't do like this, which is I see a lot of people do that. So they come up from ruku', and they say Sami Allah liman hamida, they go like this. No, you do takbir. For the Shafi'iyya, you do takbir, and that's for everyone else, by the way, right? So those are the three movements that are sunnah for the Shafi'iyya, or hay'ah for the Shafi'iyya. Again, hay'ah is the word that we usually use for sunnah. Some of the Lebanese say Rabbana wa shukr. No, so there's nothing there. But again, it's just you'll see that saying Rabbana wa lakal hamd is a hay'ah. Right, so it's a sunnah. So if you say it, and if you don't say it, it doesn't make a difference. So if you just add something to it, that's not a problem as well. You should add to it what the Prophet ﷺ added, which is like alhamdu hamdan kathiran tayyiban mubarakan fihi, to the end of the dua. But it doesn't harm your prayer in any way. All right. The fourth one, وضع اليمين على الشمال. So right on top of left hand when you're standing. So right over left. Number 5. التوجه I talked about that last time, is when you say وجهت وجهي للذي فطر السماوات والأرض حنيفا وما أنا من المشركين إن صلاتي ونسكي ومحياي ومماتي لله رب العالمين لا شريك له وبذلك أمرت وأنا أول المسلمين, and that is وأنا من المسلمين, and that is the دعاء الاستفتاح for the Shafi'iyya. So for the Hanabila, the Hanafi, and the Maliki, they do Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik, or they say Allahu Akbar Kabir, Alhamdulillah Kathir. There's different ways to start your prayer before you read Fatiha. Imam Shafi'i likes at-tawajjuh. He likes that long dua, and that's what he sees to be a sunnah, because that's the hadith that he accepted. All right. Al-isti'adha is number 6. Al-isti'adha is saying A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim before you read. For the Shafi'iyya, that is a sunnah in every rak'ah. It's a hay'ah in every rak'ah. So every rak'ah they like A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. The Hanabila only in the first rak'ah they like the isti'adha, and the Malikiyya they don't like it to be done at all in any part of the prayer. وَالْجَهْرُ فِي مَوْضِعِهِ وَالْإِسْرَارُ فِي مَوْضِعِهِ. So reading out loud when needed, all right, in the proper prayers in Maghrib, Isha, and Fajr, and reading quietly, let's say, when needed. So in Dhuhr and Asr, all right. So in the proper prayers, like within the prayers that we know. What ta'meen? So number 9. التأمين, which is saying آمين at the end of الفاتحة. وقراءة السورة بعد الفاتحة. Now these three are going to be considered one at the end, but I'm cutting them up so it's clear to everyone.
Is there explanation why some prayers out loud, some prayers not?
So we don't really have, like, I know people have come up with a few answers, but there's really there's no evidence that that's why. That's just what the Prophet ﷺ did, and that's what the Sahaba did after him. So why exactly, I'm not sure. You can think about it and maybe come up with some theory, but I don't really know, and I'm always reluctant to answer the question, because I don't think there doesn't have to always be an answer for, especially when it comes to rituals. Like when rituals, that's how they are, then that's how they are, and you just do them, and you can't ask a question about every single detail regarding the ritual. So قراءة السورة بعد الفاتحة, surah after Fatiha. It's a sunnah, it's a hay'ah, so if you don't do it, then there's nothing that you're asked to do. التكبيرات عند الرفع والخفض وقول سمع الله لمن حمده ربنا ولك الحمد. So doing takbir when you're moving, saying Allahu Akbar when you're moving for the Shafi'iyya is a hay'ah. So if you don't do it at all, if you just go down with nothing, then your salah is still fine. And that's how the Jumhur see it, in contrast to the Hanabila who call that a wajib. And that's a big difference that comes within the madhahib. That the Hanabila see the takbirat, so saying takbir during movements, and then saying Sami Allah liman hamida also added to that. So that's a hay'ah for the Shafi'iyya, and the Malikiyya and the Hanafiyya, and it's a wajib for the Hanabila. So for them, there are more regulations and rulings regarding that, and when it's supposed to be said and how. It's a bit more rigid because they give it a higher status anyway. But the Jumhur don't. They see it to be a hay'ah, so if you don't say it at all, if you're praying alone at home and you don't even say Allahu Akbar when you move, then your prayer is fine. You haven't missed anything that you need to make up for or do sujood sahw for. And then at-tasbih fi al-ruku' wal-sujud. Tasbih in ruku' and sujood. For the Shafi'iyya, all that you really need, al-asl for them, the origin of the sunnah, is saying any form of tasbih once. So that's the asl sunnah for the Shafi'iyya, saying any form of tasbih. The best being saying Subhana Rabbiyal Azim wa bihamdihi, or Subhana Rabbiyal A'la wa bihamdihi. But anything at all that you say that has tasbih, so if you say Subhanallah or Subhana Rabbi, then that's the asl sunnah. For them, they are okay with the sunnah. It can be increased enough to 3 up to 11 times. But they say that 11 times shouldn't be done by an imam unless that is something that is agreed upon within the masjid that he is praying. meaning that all the ma'mumeen should be okay with that, or else 3 is the limit for the imam. Like when he makes ruku', he should say Subhana Rabbil Azim wa bihamdi only 3 times. He shouldn't go over 3 unless he's agreed with the musallin that he's going to take more time in doing tasbih. Right, so that's something that we should, we should know. All right. وضع اليدين على الفخذين, and then putting the hands on the thighs during julus. Right. يبسط اليسرى. Right. ويقبض اليمنى إلى المسبحة فإنه يشير بها متشهدا. So when you're making julus, يبسط اليسرى, so the left is straight, right, مبسوطة, and then يقبض اليمنى. Now the Malikiyya and the Hanabila and the Hanafiya talk about tahliq, meaning making a ring with the middle finger and the thumb. Some scholars, the madhahib are a bit broken up or kind of they disagree inside within them whether that is a sunnah or not. The Shafi'i don't talk about it much. They talk about maybe the thumb being extended. That's fine. But what you're doing is yushiru bis-sababa. So it's going to be the sababa that's going the index finger that you're going to be using for the tashahhud. So hands on thighs during julus. So during julus, we have the hands on the thighs in the form that I explained. اليسرى مبسوطة واليمنى مقبوضة. So the yusra, the left is straight, and then the right is held in, except the index finger that is out. Now, what do we know about moving the index finger? Okay, so let's break this down simply. For the Imam Shafi'i, he says that the sababa, or the index finger, is moved when you say illallah, and then you can keep it up until the end of salah, until the end of prayer, until the end of movement, so whether the first tashahhud or second tashahhud, you keep it up. So ashhadu, so tahiyyatu lillahi wa salawatu wa tayyibat, or tahiyyatu lillahi al mubarakatu wa salawat. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل. And then it stays up until the Imam does takbir or taslim. So this stays up like this. Right? For the Hanafiya, they say أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله, and you put it down إلا الله, and you don't put it up again. For the Hanafiya, it's just one movement. It's when you say La ilaha. So for the Hanafi, it's called and the nafi. When you're excluding any form of deity being existence except Allah, you say Ashhadu an la ilaha, and then illallah, you put it down, and it stays down till the end. The Malikiyya are interesting. The Malikiyya say that you extend it, right, brother, and then you move it right and left until the end of prayer, not related to anything during prayer. So it's not up and down. It's right and left, yaminan wa shimalan. So the Malikiyya for them, also turn the hand. Yeah. So the hand is a bit different. It's more like it's more like you're shooting someone, but but that's how they do it. Shoot down the sheet. Yeah. So that's how they do it. And then it's right and left. Again, I'm not going into too much detail on how the hands look for all the madhab. Just so that if you see it, for me, what's important is that if you see someone doing, okay, that is that madhab, and that's how they do it. So they move it right and left. That's what the Malikiyya. For the Hanabila, they say عند ذكر الله. So when the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned, some of the Hanabila said when dua is being made. Okay? So for the Hanabila, you'll find like this. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله, because the ha is عائدة على Allah if they want. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد. So every time you say something that is referring to Allah, or the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is made, or Allahumma is said, then they move the finger up and down. So that's why you sometimes see the people going up and down. The Hanabila, they move it up based on dua or the reference to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So quickly again, the Shafi'iyya only move it, they move it when you say illallah, and then they keep it up until the end of prayer. The Hanafiyya say ashhadu an la ilaha, and then they put it down till the end of prayer. The Malikiyya just start going right and back and right and left until the end of prayer. And the Hanabila, only when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referred to or dua is made, do they move it. Does that make sense? So now you know how this So the Rajeh and Ahl al-Ilm, meaning the more prominent position, is that you look at your finger. You're also allowed to look where you make sujood. So to the point of where you put sujood. So there's different opinions on where you're supposed to look. You can look at the finger that is moving, or you can look where you make sujood. Both ways work for both madhab, for all madhab. Meaning there's a difference of opinion within them, generally speaking. Okay. Now, after that, والافتراش في جميع الجلسات الافتراش, and we have to talk about this in a second. الافتراش. In all julus, in all the times where you're sitting, and all julus, we have to do iftirash. Now, what is who can do iftirash for me? Because my knee actually really hurts me when I do it. Can you do it first, Brother Emmanuel? So maybe so this is iftirash. We have iftirash and we have tawarruk, and we'll just talk about them today so that there's some level of clarity. So that is iftirash.
Just sit on this heel.
Yeah. So you sit on the left foot, and you have the right foot upright, and his toes, his right toes, are towards the qibla. Right, his right toes are towards or in the same direction that he is facing. Right, that's iftirash. And Imam Shafi'i does that in all the jalsat, all the julus, except the final one. والتورك, that's why number 15. والتورك في الجلسة الأخيرة. So tawarruk. See, that's tawarruk. Let's see, did you get it? Yeah, he almost got it. Yeah, you're older than I am. That's okay. Does someone know how to do tawarruk?
You have to get the foot in there, or so the main thing is you're sitting on the
so the foot can go on the ground. So put this on me. So this is how you can do it. Right? So you can put it like this, and then the foot is underneath. You're sitting on your left side. Okay, so that is tawarruk. With a difference of opinion amongst the madhahib on how exactly iftirash, which is what he showed you the first time, and tawarruk, what I did the second time, how it exactly done. There's little details that they differ upon. I'm not going to get into them because there's no point. There's really very, very small details of where you're putting pressure on which side of your, it doesn't matter. So, but as long as you understand that this is how the Hanafiya see iftirash in all sitting, so they don't see tawarruk at all at the end. And the Malikiyya say that you do tawarruk in the last tashahhud and in the first tashahhud. That makes sense? The Shafi'i and the Hanabil are the same, meaning that you do iftirash in all the sittings except the last tashahhud where you do tawarruk if possible. This is specifically for the imam. So if you're praying in a line with people, if you do tawarruk, you'll probably sit on the person's head beside you. You'll end up actually squishing the person beside you. So unless everyone is doing tawarruk, then you cannot do it when you're praying as a ma'moom with a jama'ah. It's not going to work. Unless maybe you're very limbo and you can actually get yourself, you can do it without, I can't, I shift like 3 meters to the left when I do it. It's very hard and it hurts the legs. So you can just stick to iftirash if you want to. So the Hanafiya don't see tawarruk at all, and the Malikiyya see in the first and second tashahhud. The Shafi'i and the Hanabila see tawarruk only in the last tashahhud. So I hope I kind of broke it down a bit for you. So tawarruk is the 15th. Yeah, for last tashahhud, regardless of the prayer, for last tashahhud. All right.
Are there opinions in regards to like either this or this or
during you mean sujood?
No, sitting. Sitting. Like the feet,
the way how the feet
this.
are sometimes.
Yeah, so you can. Yeah, so there's an epic debate that I didn't want to get into regarding what is. So the Prophet ﷺ naha, he discouraged something called al-iqa', right? So. Hamza, Qaf, Ain, Alif, Hamza, al-iqa'. And they differed on what exactly is iqa'. So some of them said it's this, and I tend to see that to be the opinion, that having your feet saying, and I think this is the one that you shouldn't do. Another example is this, and I can't even do it, which is you're actually sitting, that actually kills me, I can't do it. So you actually sit down with your feet up. The one that is acceptable for most scholars is if you do this. So this is the third way of sitting that is acceptable. This is what I do because I can't do anything else. But the iftirash, by far, iftirash is the sunnah. Whether you put you sit on the left and have the right upright, or you do it the opposite, which is also acceptable. You can sit on the right and have the left upright, and then tawarruk at the end. And tawarruk is only done for the imam, if possible for him, of course. And that is and again, I told you the difference of opinion regarding it. Does that make sense?
You actually go on your right. And
and have the left up. Yeah. So that's acceptable as well. Yes.
I think there's a hadith that Sheikh Qarafi mentions that he says that the Messenger of Allah used to actually pray in Iqah, but the thing is, Ibn Abbas affirms it, and I think that the view that like the way that you're not supposed to sit like a dog, so there's another hadith that says you're not supposed to sit like a dog. If you look at the picture of like how a dog sits, it might be closer to like if somebody was to do this, which would be like ridiculous, right?
Sure. Again, it's a long difference of opinion between scholars on what it is. I think what I told you is what the prominent position is, meaning with your feet up, both. That's what I think we shouldn't do. Then if you have them on top of each other, kind of laying down, then that should be acceptable. Wallahu a'lam. Try to stick to iftirash if you're capable. And of course, this is a hay'ah. What we're talking about right now is a hay'ah. So if you don't do it at all, if you just whatever you want to do, your salah is still maqboola. You haven't lost your prayer. You just didn't do the perfect thing. التسليم الثانية, the second taslim. So that's the hay'ah. So if you're praying, for the Shafi'i, if you بصلي, so one of the arkan is Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. That's a rukn. At this point, you're out of prayer. Prayer is over. So if you want to do a hay'ah, meaning you want to do a sunnah in the prayer, you will say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. But if you say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, get up and walk away, you're good, you're done. The second one is a hay'ah. If you don't do it, your prayer is still acceptable. Does that make sense? Yes.
Brother Mir did that one time. He led a prayer and he's like, Assalamu alaikum.
Oh, I did the ones.
And we're all waiting for him to go Assalamu alaikum, right? We're just like, what just happened? How he's like, don't worry, man, it's just a Maliki thing.
No, so it's again, there's more than the madhahib have different opinions on it. I don't want to go into too much detail because this is not as important. The Shafi'i have a lenient opinion of the second one being a hay'ah. So if you don't do it at all, you should be fine. Yes.
What's the ruling on the bow between the second taslim? Does that matter?
No, there's no such thing anyway.
You don't even have to.
No. The dipping, that dip is new. Like it's So is that gonna
half one of your pants up or something?
So we don't know exactly. So it's right. So I counted 16. He talked about 15. I think what he put together was probably saying takbir and doing tasbih. He saw them as one. But anyways, these are the hay'at. These are the sunan of prayer. If you do these, you get ajr. And if you do not do them, then there's no punishment that is attached. And you don't have to do sujood sahw at the end. You don't have to make up for it at all. Does that make sense? And I talked about how for the Hanabila, saying takbir during movements and doing tasbih and ruku' and sujood, that's wajib for them. So they see that, that's why they have more rigid regulations regarding these things. Okay, so yes, definitely.
Is there anything about when somebody says Assalamu alaikum and then somebody else is walking by and they're not praying? Do they say alaikum salam?
Okay, we'll come to that in a second actually. That's we'll talk about that in a minute. It's actually coming up, if not today, then next time inshallah. We'll talk about it in a bit more detail. I'll give you some examples that are inshallah, because there's a lot of things that people don't know. Okay. فصل والمرأة تخالف الرجل في 5 أشياء. And for the Shafi'iyya, the woman, when she's praying, there are 5 differences between the prayer of a female in comparison to the prayer of a male. So the first one, فالرجل يجافي مرفقيه عن جنبيه ويقل بطنه عن فخذيه في الركوع والسجود. So the first one, يجافي مرفقيه عن جنبيه. So when he's praying, his elbows are a bit away from his sides, right? So when he's making sujood, his elbows are out a bit, so you can see this part of his arm, right? So they're out a bit, so you can see this part. Again, this is doing it. You're doing this when the Prophet ﷺ was mostly observed praying as a what? Ma'mum or imam? So most of the observations we have of his prayer ﷺ was when he was an imam. So some things it's very easy to do when you're imam. Some things are a bit more difficult when you're ma'mum and you're crowded. When you're crowded, you do whatever you can to kind of make sure that the prayer doesn't you're not bothering anyone. So when he's praying, his hands come out a bit, so you can see this part of his arm. حتى يبدو بياض إبطيه, meaning you could see the white part of his armpit, like the front part. So yujafi, and we'll see the woman doesn't do that. Well, he's going to count what the men do, and then he'll give 5 differences what the women don't do. The second one, ويقل بطنه عن فخذيه في الركوع والسجود, meaning when he makes sujood, the stomach is not touching the thighs, right? So when you're making sujood, do your thighs touch your stomach? But could they? you could really come in, very close to each, kind of squish yourself, especially if you're praying. If you ever prayed in Mecca during Ramadan or during Hajj, then certain points like you have like, this is how much you have to pray in. Basically almost, so you can, everything is squished together. So for the man, no, the thighs and the stomach shouldn't be touching each other during sujood either. Number 3, وَيَجْهَرُ فِي مَوْضِعِ الْجَهْرِ, and the man will read out loud when the time is proper, when it's a proper prayer to read out loud. وَإِذَا نَابَهُ شَيْءٌ فِي الصَّلَاةِ سَبَّحْ, and if he notices something that is wrong in prayer, if he as a ma'moom, as a person standing behind an imam, سَبَّحْ, he'll say Subhanallah. It's like when if you're praying and the imam makes a different mistake, if he sits and this is the third rak'ah instead of the fourth and it's Isha, then you'll say Subhanallah and you'll stand up and you'll continue your prayer. So if the man will say Sabbah, he'll say Subhanallah. وَعَوْرَةُ الرَّجُلِ مَا بَيْنَ سُرَّتِهِ وَرُكْبَتِهِ, and the awrah, what the man needs to cover in salah, is between his navel and knee. Correct? Okay. We'll talk about that inshallah later, because the knee is not agreed upon as being the awrah, at least a part, as long as a part of it is being covered, right? وَالْمَرْأَةُ, now as far as the woman, تَضُمُّ بَعْضَهَا إِلَى بَعْضٍ. So when she's praying, she brings her arms closer to her body. So she's not opening it; she brings them closer to her body, right? And when she's praying, her stomach and knees will be closer to each other. So she's not praying, she's not opening things up. She's kind of bringing it closer together, and that's what the Prophet ﷺ told the woman. That's what Aisha was observed praying. That's how Aisha was seen. Meaning her arms were closer to her torso, and her stomach and thighs were closer together when she was making sujood. So that's two differences. وَتَخْفِضُ صَوْتَهَا بِحَضْرَةِ الرِّجَالِ الْأَجَانِبِ, and if she's praying like Maghrib and Isha alone, and there are men that she doesn't know, not people of the household, not residents of the household, then she'll bring her voice down a bit. وَإِذَا نَابَهَا شَيْءٌ فِي الصَّلَاةِ صَفَّقَتْ, and if something happens wrong in the salah, then women and men are leading the prayer, not women, then they will clap, or they'll make a clapping sound to let them know. And again, these things aren't, whether if she says tasbih, does she lose her prayer? No, and it's not makruh even. She can do that, but that's what the Prophet. We have a hadith that the Prophet ﷺ, that's what they told him to do. But if she does the opposite, if she does tasbih, then that's fine as well. وَجَمِيعُ بَدَنِ الْحُرَّةِ عَوْرَةٌ إِلَّا وَجْهَهَا وَكَفَّيْهَا, and in prayer, her awrah is not from the navel to knee. Her awrah is all her body besides her face and her hands. Yeah, so that's for the Shafi'iyya, of course. Others have different opinion regarding that. We'll come to that inshallah at a certain point. We'll talk about the differences. But for the salah, for the Shafi'iyya, hands and faces should be apparent when she's praying. And that kind of, I think, Wallahu A'lam, is what she should be covering in the rest of her life. What you cover for ibadah, that's what you should cover for the rest of your day. Like if something is good enough for salah, then it should be good enough for life, because salah is a much more prominent and much more holy standing than anything else, right? Because it's salah. So if she's allowed to have her face, her hands, then she should have that elsewhere as well, right? And those are the differences between men and women when it comes to salah. وَالْأَمَةُ كَالرَّجُلِ, and a lady who does not have her freedom, she can pray like a man if she wants. Meaning she doesn't have to do these things. These things are regulations for women who have their freedom. And just like men who don't have their freedom, there are certain things that they don't have to do if they don't want to do. You don't have to come to Jum'ah. There's different things that they don't have to do. So Islam looks at freedom as a privilege and an extra responsibility. So if you're free and you're not enslaved by anyone, then more responsibility is put upon you, and you have to carry yourself a bit differently for men and women. And this is an example for how that is done. Alhamdulillah, this is not there anymore, so we don't have to go into too much detail talking about like the regulations or rulings regarding slaves. But yeah, it's there for us to read. Okay, so those are the differences between men and women when it comes to salah. So we've talked about so far a number of things. Most importantly, we've talked about arkan as-salah for Shafi'iyya, the things that if you forget, you need to go back and get. And we talked about the sunan, things that if you forget, you have to do sujood sahu for. And the hayat, where if you don't do them, then there's nothing that you're going to be held responsible. You're not going to be held responsible for. You don't have to go back. You don't have to do sujood sahu. So these are the three things that we've talked about generally. Yes?
Can a woman do adhan and
if men are around, then for men, for the Shafi'iyya, no. Yeah. So let me put it this way. A lot of the rulings that exist for women in the book that we're going to read, and a lot of different fiqh books, were written in the 6th or 7th Islamic century. So this is roughly 600, 700, 800 years ago, when society functioned very differently, and it was not customary or common for women to be as out and open as they are today, and to be socially involved with things that men do as much as they are today. So a lot of the rulings that are related to things like this are rulings that were based on the urf, based on what people, on the customs of the time. So they're not necessarily rooted in ahadith or ayat. So a lot of them you'll read that this is the ruling, and you'll say, well, where do you get that from? Even like amatu karrajul, meaning a woman who doesn't have her freedom is similar to a man when it comes to salah and the way she's going to pray. Well, where do they get that from? It's urf, it's customary. They don't have any hadith that tell them this, and they don't have any ayat that tell them this. So this is a matter of urf. And today urf has changed dramatically in a lot of different ways. So a lot of these rulings are subject to to revision, and are subject to critiquing. And I think that's fair. That's a fair way to put it anyway.
So
yes,
there's a mosque I've heard recently where they're praying women and men in the same rows.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, because there's certain things that are a bit when it comes to there's certain purposes that are being served, meaning that we understand through the way that things are done, meaning the segregation between men and women in prayer is important because of the fact that there's always going to be an attraction between both genders. Having them in the same place, having them standing side by side, when there's no necessity to it, then it's just an extravagant move. However, do women and men not stand side by side in different places for salah, other places? Have you ever done Hajj?
Yeah.
Okay, do Hajj, and then you'll come back and you'll have a different perspective.
I've seen people pray, men and women pray side by side, literally in Mecca.
Yeah, and in Hajj, because there's sometimes no space and there's nowhere to go, so you just do what you need to do. And during Ramadan and Umrah, so the rulings regarding these things are actually a bit more open than we're led to believe. However, there has to be a purposeful and I guess a critical way of looking at these things. So what we don't need to do ikhtilat for, we don't do ikhtilat for. Now, is this necessarily right? Did this exist in the Prophet ﷺ's masjid? No. So there wasn't even a curtain. So men and women prayed in the exact same masjid, the men in front and the women behind, that's it. There was nothing else. And that's how it was good enough for him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm wondering why it's not good enough for us as well. So there's a lot of culture that affected how certain ahkam in the deen regarding women were derived and developed. And it's not beyond us, or it's not difficult for us to criticize it, to revise it, and to maybe talk about something that suits a bit more. But obviously certain things the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did clearly, we should stick to it. Like when it comes to the sufuf of the men and the sufuf of the women and whatnot. But when it comes to idhan and iqama, it could be talked about. Of course, it would be very, very out of the ordinary, to say the least.
Urf would be not.
Yeah, the urf would be very, very difficult to break. But I think elsewhere in the world, it may not be that much of a problem, and thus, there's nothing saying that it's haram that we can't do it. Yes.
Sir, good question. What about standing beside Imam? If there are two persons, should they stand together or one?
Yeah, we'll come to that inshallah. It's along the way. It's still the bab of salah is long. Like we're still 40 pages away from when it's going to end at least. So don't worry about it. We'll come to it inshallah. All right. فصل والذي يبطل الصلاة 11 شيئا. There are 11 things that will nullify your prayer or invalidate your prayer, to make your prayer invalid. So the invalidators of prayer. So he talked about 11 things, and we're going to go through them inshallah one by one. Only a few of them really are important for you to kind of know. The rest are kind of just pretty much understood. You wouldn't. So the first one, al-kalam al-amd. Speaking on purpose, of course, during salah. And of course, I'm not going into the details of what do you mean on purpose, and if we forgot, and if you were to say something, and this is like a 2-week study of what happens if he said, Hasbuna Allah wa ni'mal wakil. It's an ayah in the Quran, but he meant, he was saying something to someone else. But it's an ayah. Does he lose his prayer? Does his prayer, and then it never ends. So you're standing there and your son dropped his book. If you said خُذِ الْكِتَابَ بِقُوَّةٍ, right? Then what? Do you lose your prayer? Or it depends on your attention, and what happens there? So they have this, again, it's a non-ending discussion that this is an introductory text. I'm not going to get into it, right? But the kalam al-amd, speaking to someone during prayer, will nullify your prayer. Even though it's funny, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, and during the Prophet ﷺ's time, they did it until the Prophet ﷺ told them. So told them, إن هذه الصلاة لا يصلح فيها شيء من كلام الناس. إنما هو التسبيح والتكبير وقراءة القرآن. So he told them that this prayer doesn't work for people, chatting. This is only for so the Sahaba would be talking, during Salah. Before this, and the Prophet ﷺ told them, no, you can't be talking. So obviously at the beginning of things, a lot of them didn't know what they was, specifically the Muslimin who accepted Islam late. So you're talking about the first 13 years of Mecca. There was a lot of teaching that happened then, 13 years of it. So they knew how to pray. But then when they went to Medina, a lot of the new Muslims, they didn't know. I prayed in a masjid in Medina, where the guy in front of me was eating tamr, and the guy beside him told him, "Atni, give me one." So I told them, "Nafagat, I don't have any more." Right? So during Salah, not during Khutbah Jummah, during Salat al-Jummah, like we were praying Jummah and the Imam was reading in Fatiha and these guys were talking, and they're all men in their 50s.
And they're eating.
Yeah, one guy's eating, the other guy's asking him if he can give him a piece, So it was, and it was hilarious. I never forget that. Anyways, Kalam al-Amd, speaking on purpose, anything outside of prayer for now, just kind of take it as simple as that, as it'll nullify your prayer, invalidate your prayer. However, there are details that you can go into that you may find difference of opinion among scholars, but I'm not going to go into them because it's just it's too complicated. Number 2, al-amal al-kathir. So excessive movement. Now we'll talk about this because this is actually very important. So excessive movement. The Malikiya are okay with the following. They're okay of you moving 2 lines, not counting your line and the line you're going to. Okay, so here's a line. There's another line. So the line over there. Brother Ali, stand on the line over there. No, this one here. Stand on one of the lines here in prayer. Yes, that one. Stand up. Yeah, stand there. Okay, so see the line over there? So if I were standing over here, the Malikiya are okay me walking over there during prayer. And now, even if and they didn't talk about how many steps. Some scholars said 5 steps, some of them said 3. But the Maliki are okay with walking 2 lines, not counting the one you're in and the one you're going to, which that could be sometimes if there's a lot of space, it could be up to 7 to 8 steps, right? So they're okay with you if you're standing here and there's a spot over there and no one moved up, you're allowed to walk. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and up to 5 steps, right? Sometimes it'll be even more. So that's what the Maliki are okay with. So when it comes to moving for a hajah, the Maliki are okay up to that level of movement. So excessive, because how do we measure excessive movement? What do we do to measure excessive? The word excessive is quantifiable. So the scholars try to quantify it, and it's very hard to quantify. And that's what the Maliki gave when it came to purposeful movement that actually helps the prayer. When it comes to non-purposeful movement, then it's makruh, with a difference of opinion on to what extent it'll end your prayer. It's left for the urf, again, for the customary. If you see someone doing something and when you see them doing it, you're like, oh, they couldn't be praying, then that movement must be something that will nullify prayer, right? So what the Imam al-Nawawi okay with? But Imam al-Nawawi is okay. قال العمل القليل لا يبطل كخلع الخف. So like taking off your shoes, right, during prayer. وَرَدِّ السَّلَامِ. Someone, again, salam alaikum, and you raising your hand back to them, even though it's makruh to do that, but doing it wouldn't nullify your prayer. وَخَلْعِ ثَوْبٍ خَفِيفٍ. So if I'm wearing a very like this, taking this off during prayer wouldn't nullify my prayer. This is the Shafi'iyya's take on this, and the rest of the madhab are okay with it, generally speaking. وَحَمْلِ طِفْلٍ صَغِيرٍ. So if I'm praying and my 2-year-old comes, right, then I can carry them. And then if they need to put down, I can put them down. And every time I move, I have to carry him up and down again. Then that is movement that doesn't nullify your prayer. Taking off so an example, and listen to me clearly. Turning off your phone during salah doesn't nullify your prayer. So putting your hand into your pocket and then switching the little silence thing does not nullify your prayer. Right? So a lot of people sometimes are standing there, and it goes off, and they don't want to nullify their prayer, but they're okay nullifying everyone else's prayer, including the imam, right, and making everyone completely not in focus at all. No, small movements that are purposeful, helpful, like there's a reason why you're doing it, then they don't nullify prayer. They talk about movements that are completely non-purposeful, like playing around, like playing with your lihya, or playing with your phone, right? Then small movements like that may nullify, but there is a broad spectrum of opinions regarding what nullifies and what doesn't. The Imam Shafi'i, the Shafi'i just say excessive movement, al-amal al-kathir, and they leave it up to you. So if you want to be safe when you move a bit too much in prayer, then you should repeat your prayer. But again, Imam Nawawi was very clear. He said taking off a simple piece of clothing, taking off your shoes, carrying a child, all these things don't they don't nullify your prayer. Radd al-salam doesn't nullify your prayer. The Prophet ﷺ was known sometimes to interact very limited, in a limited way during prayer, but we understand that the time that he was living in ﷺ as the commander, as it was a time of war, then he would have to interact. He didn't have the choice really, but he was known when he was praying his qiyam al-layl alone to be completely focused. He wouldn't interact with anyone. Yes.
What was the purposeful movement?
So like when you're moving from one part of from one place to the other, and there's a reason why you're closing in an opening in a saf, or you're in a place where you're being you can't hear yourself or you can't focus during prayer, they can move forward. If you're carrying a kid who's screaming, so that they stop screaming, or if you're getting really hot during prayer, take something off so you can pray a bit more focused.
Also move to carry a kid.
Yeah, so the same thing, as long as you don't move. Again, it's not excessive movement, right? So you have to kind of keep. The Prophet ﷺ was there's a hadith where he opened the door for Aisha, right? But that's a purposeful movement. He's praying and she's standing outside, and it's night and it's cold and it's dark, and she's knocking on the door, and so he opens the door so she can enter. So sometimes, stuff like that. Of course, unless it's too excessive. So if you're standing in one room and the door is like 10 rooms away, then maybe go and then come back and finish later. Or if you're close enough, you can kind of open the door. Yeah.
Is there anything dragging the feet, or we can just?
No, you can walk normally. You don't have to drag the feet. Don't drag your feet.
Stop what you're doing, kind of focus on that, and then.
Whenever you stop your prayer, you go back and you repeat.
No, he means like, do you like stop, like no qira'at?
But if it's sort of.
Yeah, you can do that and then continue. Yeah, so you can pause for a minute to finish something. Yeah.
Is it okay to willingly just stop the prayer anytime you want? Like,
no, it's not. Unless there's a reason for it, you should never end your prayer in the middle. Or even sunnah, unless there's a reason for it. Like for sunnah, there's a priority higher, which is maybe your parents' needs or your wife needs, depending on what type of marriage you got. So if it's sunnah, you can cut it for stuff like that. And faridah, then you shouldn't cut it unless there's something that's unless someone's life is in danger. Like if you're standing in Maghrib and the imam faints, then at least 3 or 4 people should salim, take the imam to the hospital, and the rest can continue the prayer.
Oh, by the way, you have to say like.
Yeah, do taslim. Yeah.
Just
go ahead.
For all these purposeful movements,
yes,
we still need to make sure that at least part of our chest is facing the qibla, right, in order to still do the movement.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So we'll come to that in a second, because he talks about istidbar al-qibla. He talks about turning your back to the qibla. That's where I'll talk about like a bit more detail.
He was praying here, and there was another guy in first tashahhud, and he got a text message. He quickly checked.
He checked it. MashaAllah. No, so unless he's waiting for something that is life-threatening, you shouldn't do that. That would be. Yeah, no, don't do that either. Like, so don't give him a nudge or anything. Now you're making it even worse. Now we're making it. Yeah.
Shaykh Salih al-Munajjid, his view of excessive is what's offensive, like what's commonly considered offensive. So to most of us, we would find it offensive, right? If somebody pulled out their phone while they're praying to Allah and they're talking to their friends, so
or talking to us directly.
Yeah, texting is considered speaking.
Yeah.
So it would nullify. Checking the phone wouldn't nullify the prayer, but that's makruh definitely. Like you're losing a lot of ajr for doing that. Unless you actually return the text or talk back. But so it wouldn't. Yeah. So checking would be makruh, would be very unrecommended. You'd lose a lot of ajr for it, but it wouldn't. I don't think it would. It would.
You're checking to see if the sound's on.
Yeah. So there you go. So that's purposeful. That's kind of helping prayer. But here you're just kind of you're just curious during a salah. So it's makruh. You'd lose a lot of ajr, but I don't think it would qualify as nullifying your prayer.
Sorry, last question. Pardon me. You said that when you lose, like let's say you lose wudu or whatever it is, right? You have to make taslim, or do you just like?
No, so you make taslim, then you leave. So you always make taslim to end. One taslim is enough. Yeah.
What if you don't make taslim and just like, oh, you lost wudu, so you don't make
So next time make taslim.
But I mean,
Nothing, just yeah.
like an actual like.
Yeah, so it's a rukn, right? Ending prayer. How do you end prayer? You have to have the intention to end prayer. You have to make one
But
taslim.
if your wudu leaves you, for example, if you pass,
Yeah, but you should still end it properly. Yeah, but that wouldn't. Of course, if you didn't, there would be nothing that you would need to do. But you should end it properly.
Yeah.
So that's why number 3 is al-hadath. What's al-hadath?
Breaking.
So breaking your wudu, losing wudu. So if you're sitting in prayer, and you lose your wudu, then you can't continue. You have to get up and go make wudu and then come back and pray again.
So with that, if you're in line, what's the best route to take? Do you go walk in front of every single person, or do you try and go?
Yeah.
No, just walk and then come.
man is his sunnah is for everybody.
Yeah, so you just walk between the line. You walk to in your line to the end of the line, and then just come very embarrassed and ashamed of yourself. Go home, pray at home, and don't come back for a week. No. Let me tell you something regarding that, just so that you don't. Of course, I'm just joking. Umar al-Khattab on the minbar, he let go of gas and he said it. I let go. Ahdathtu.
What did you say?
Ahdatht. He actually said the word. I'm not going to say it. And then he came down, make wudu, and come back up again. And of course, that takes guts. Yeah, that takes a lot of bravery. Because
What are you gonna do? Not do that?
well, just maybe say, Ya Rab dakhilak, forgive me for this, and he continues to the end of it. But that would mean, of course, they didn't. He would have to have. But no, that shows like a lot of courage and character. To do that.
You have to have wudu when you do khutbah.
Yes, of course. Salah, it's a part of salah.
I think it's good just to maybe have a really light meal instead of a heavy one.
I never eat before a khutbah ever. I never eaten before. Never eaten before in my life before a khutbah. Okay. وحدوث النجاسة. Impurities. So if you're praying and someone slaps some feces on you, right? Or something like that happens, then you need to cut your prayer, go remove the najasa from yourself or from where you're praying, and then continue prayer after that. So that's huduth and najasa. So any physical impurity. So this is religious impurity, and this is physical impurity. Know the difference between the two. Okay. Sometimes people forget about it. Religious impurity is when you lose your wudu. Right? Physical impurity is when you have actual feces or urine or blood or pus or anything that is impure upon your body or on your clothing or somewhere where you're praying. Okay. After that, وانكشاف العورة, and then exposure of aura. All right. So this is important. If you do it on purpose, you lose your prayer. That's the jumhur. That's what the jumhur say. So if you on purpose, try and you show a part that you shouldn't be showing during prayer, your prayer is gone. But what happens if a small part is shown? So what happens if you're praying, you go down for a sujood, right? And then, this part here ends up not covering, right? That's just an example because that will be under the navel, and that's a part of the aura. So what about that? So al-yasir min inkishaf al-awra, so a small amount of the awra being exposed, la yubtil as-salah, for the jumhur. And this is something for all of them, they all view it like that. Except the Hanabila who are strict on the saw'ah, meaning unless we're talking about the aura of the aura, like we're talking about the actual genitalia. So that part, no, if it's showing, you should redo your prayer. But anything else, the Hanafiya are interesting. They talked about percentages. What's the part of? So this is an organ that you shouldn't. This extremity, the thigh, shouldn't be apparent during salah. So to what extent? If the Hanafi says only a third of it, Abu Hanifa said only a third. Muhammad, Abu Yusuf and Muhammad ibn Hassan, they said up to half of it. If it's less than half, then your prayer is fine. So they give percentages to it. But basically what I'm saying, that if you're praying in shorts and a small part regresses during your prayer, you don't lose your prayer. And if you're praying and maybe your shirt wasn't tucked in properly and a part of your back showed, then it doesn't nullify your prayer. That's important because that happens a lot, and I don't want people to be repeating their prayers because of that. If you on purpose, then you lose your prayer. Yes, Ali.
So the knee is, if you have shorts, the knee is okay.
So the knee is a difference of opinion. There's a difference of opinion among scholars regarding the knee. And even regarding the thigh, by the way. Like, we'll talk about that later, inshallah. But there's difference of opinion regarding that. So if your knees exposed, that's fine during salah. It shouldn't be, but it's makruh. It's unrecommended, Ali. I'm saying it's not something good. You shouldn't do it. But if it does happen, then your prayer is still acceptable. So we're talking about the base minimum. We're just saying what nullifies your prayer and makes it completely unacceptable. You have to do it again. But it's still makruh. It's still something that is unrecommended. Okay.
Would it be proper etiquette, just like right before you pray, you dress appropriately?
Yes, of course. That's the whole point. But we're talking about, when we talk about nullifiers, you're telling someone that your prayer didn't count, and that's a big claim to make, and that's something that we are very careful on making. So we don't just say it to anyone. So it has to be something very clear. So small amounts of inkishaf al-awra, of exposing the parts that need to be covered, doesn't nullify your prayer. However, if you do it on purpose, then you lose it. Okay.
Same for the woman as well?
Yeah, it goes for the women as well. No difference here.
Their view in the Shafiee opinion that it's like time dependent, so as long as you catch it within a few seconds, then you're good.
There is an opinion like that, but it's not the prominent one. Imam Nawawi is okay.
As long as it's even if you for like 6 seconds of sujood.
But there is an opinion that says it's time dependent. Taghyir an-niyyah, which means changing of the niyyah.
Changing your niyyah?
Yeah, changing intention.
Oh, really?
Now that, of course, sounds crazy, but it happens more than you think. Example? All right. You're tired and it's 2 o'clock, right, during the day. Allahu Akbar. And your mind, it was Dhuhr. Like, oh, no, this is Asr. Right, so you change intention, you lost your prayer. Do it again.
Reels.
Yeah, reels. You don't know what you're doing. Yeah, you're standing up, you don't even know what prayer you're praying, and you Habibi, like, look at the clock, know what prayer it is at least. So changing intention anytime during the prayer, or saying this is a fard, oh, I don't want to consider this fard anymore. I want to consider this a sunnah, you lose your prayer. Or this is sunnah, oh, I'm going to consider this fajr. Yeah.
This is all opinions, or?
Yes. Yeah. Taghyir an-niyyah for all.
But not if it's like a waswas or something like that. Like
No. I'm saying.
It's like
No. I mean, like you're making a conscious decision. You're shifting your prayer from being one thing to the other. You lose it immediately. Oh, do we have time for one more? Okay, just wastidbar al-qibla, which is what I want to talk about for a moment. Istidbar al-qibla, turning your back to the qibla.
If you're praying sunnah and someone joins you, like not knowing that you're, like, I know there's a different opinion about whether you can, like, and you start reciting out loud, that's not changing your intention, is it?
No.
he has a totally different intention than you didn't change your intention.
As long as you're still praying the prayer you were praying at the beginning, that's fine. So we're going to talk about iltifat. We're talking about looking around. So during a prayer, what makes it batil for Shafi'iyya? So for the Shafi'iyya, if you're standing and you move your head, the prayer is still fine. If you move your chest, then you lose your prayer. Okay, so if someone runs by and look like this, and sometimes it happens, by the way. Sometimes with as a reflex, you're praying and then like something runs by, so your head goes, and as long as it's just your neck that's moving, then for the Shafi'iyya your prayer is still acceptable. But if the chest moves 180 degrees or 90 degrees, in any direction, then you lose your prayer. You can't do 180. You can barely. So if you do 90 degrees in one direction, then you lose your prayer. For the Malikiyya, as long as the feet stay towards the Qibla. So if you are, mashallah, very, very flexible, and for somehow you can turn this way, right, with your feet still towards the Qibla, you haven't lose your prayer yet. So for the Malikiyya, just the feet have to stay towards the Qibla. The Hanabila say in istidar, and this is the term they use. They say in istidara bi jumlatihi, if he turns around altogether. And that's why that term sounds like what the Shafi'iyya say, and sounds like what the Malikiyya say. It is not 100% clear what they mean by that. That's why the madhab itself has a lot of different, there's division on what they mean by that. But I think it's closer to what the Shafi'iyya say. If your torso moves 90 degrees, so you're no longer towards the Qibla, then you lose your prayer. After that, al-aklu wa shurb.
Eating or drinking.
Yes, eating, drinking. Yeah, Sheikh, of course. Anything, chewing on, munching on anything at all is nullifying your prayer. Al-qahqaha, laughing out loud, smiling doesn't nullify your prayer.
What if you?
I'm gonna tell you a really bad story.
What if you held it in? Because like there was one.
Yeah. You can. Yeah.
Really funny to me, and I was like this.
Yeah. As long as you're not laughing out loud. That's why qahqaha is the word.
Yeah.
So we were praying, and apparently the people I was praying with had never ever done sujood al-tilawa in their lives. They don't even know what it is. Like they had never ever seen it, never experienced it in their lives. So we're praying, and we go for sujood sahu. And then the guy who knows, goes for sujood sahu. The guy beside him doesn't know, so he thinks this guy is fainting, so he puts his hands out to catch him, right? And then everyone just breaks into laughter in the masjid, and the poor sheikh, he didn't know what to do, to continue, to stop, because everyone was laughing. Yeah, and it was just it was insane. Anyways, they had never done sujood tilawa, so the guy who did sujood tilawa, the guy beside him was praying. He's maybe first, second time praying. He thinks this guy is fainting, so he comes to pick him up, and he breaks it.
The whole cover is laughing, and do you continue as the imam?
So the imam has more than one choice here. He can break his prayer and turn around and just yell at these people for 15 minutes and then pray with them again, or he can just continue, right? So and the better thing for him to do is to continue. Why? Because the people who just nullified their prayer can intend and join him again. So let's say, the moment they laughed out loud, you lost your prayer. He's in the second rak'ah, so now make the intention for prayer. Kabbir, now you're in the second rak'ah. You missed the first rak'ah and you continue. So that's probably what the better thing to do. Yes.
That and probably because when you say you do takbiratul ihram is like some things are becoming haram for you. So the fact that you can't just talk to your buddy, you're in a state of ihram just from joining the salah.
Yeah. Last one, apostasy. So if you do ridda in salah, you lose your salah. Okay, so if at any point during salah you decide that you don't want to be a Muslim anymore, you lose your prayer altogether. And of course, that kind of goes without saying, but they put together, they categorize these things so that they don't leave anything behind. Like they make sure that they're holistic. Yes.
You eat and drink, and I'm sure it happens to other people too. Like you just got done eating something and then you go pray. And
yeah, again, so there's a difference of opinion. The Shafiee aren't very lenient on anything in the mouth going down. So and that's why you're required before prayer or you're encouraged before prayer to do madmada. And to get some water, swish it through your mouth, make sure that there's nothing left inside. Because for the Shafi'iyya, if you're praying and then a lodged marshmallow that's sitting there for a year decides to dislodge and it's now in your mouth. Now if you swallow that, you lose prayer. You'd have to do is take it out and hold on to it until the end of prayer, which is just gross. And then so it's a bit of a problem. That's why it's important that you kind of make sure you wash your mouth out, or don't play around with your teeth during salah. Like if you're not playing around, you're not going to dislodge anything. So don't go around looking for things. Just leave as is, at least during salah. Okay, those are the invalidators. We finished actually the invalidators, alhamdulillah. Next time we'll start inshallah talking. The Imam will do a summary of everything at the end, and then we'll move on inshallah within salah to something new. Jazakumullah khair. Subhanakallah bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. So 1, 2.